It's Wednesday, July 3rd, and here are some of the topics that we're going to be covering on today's Digital Trends Live. Coming up here on the show, as we go through, talking about several different topics. Normally here we go. All right, so after a bit of a down quarter, Tesla is back producing and delivering more vehicles than ever before in their third quarter. We'll give you the details on what it means for the electric vehicle industry. And researchers at Stanford are working on making eyeglasses better with what they have called autofocus, allowing the glasses to track objects where your eye moves. Plus, we have the CEO of Teespring, Chris LaMontagne, will join us to talk about how their partnership with Twitch and how their online platform empowers independent artists and creators. And I want you to keep this to yourself, but what if I told you there was a way you could get your hands on about $8,000 quadrillion worth of gold and no one would be the wiser? I'll tell you how you can do that later on in this episode of Digital Trends Live. That is a pretty good shot of Portland, I gotta say.
Yeah, it's a little gloomy though for this time of year.
I know, I feel like we always have these scenic shots. I mean, the city always looks good, but yeah, then you see the clouds just hanging overhead.
Yeah, but you can see the clouds.
You can.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's not just a gray slate.
Yep, absolutely. See, this is what we bring you here at Digital Trends. We order that up for you every single day. We have those clouds arranged perfectly.
Could be more exciting, like tornado.
Yeah.
Oh wait, we already did that.
No, we did that. Did that earlier this week. Hello, everyone. This is Digital Trends Live. This is our daily show here from Digital Trends, where we bring you the trending tech topics of the day, news, headlines, interviews, and discussions, all while broadcasting live on a number of different platforms. We're on LinkedIn Live, Periscope, Twitter, Twitch. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're on Dailymotion. We're on Apple News. We're on 2 different mobile apps, and we're on a smart TV app. And if that's not enough, we're at digitaltrends.com/live as well. And you can comment and join in the conversation on pretty much any of those platforms. So wherever you do, thanks so much for doing so. Always fun to have these conversations as we go through the show and discussions about the tech that we're going to cover today. But to start off, I'm Greg Nibbler, joined by Dan Gall. Hello, Dan.
Hello, Greg.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing excellent as well. We have some things to discuss here today.
As I'm always excited for.
Well, let us continue. So, we like to take a look at what
sounds so like.
I know, but wasn't it? Yeah, I kind of like it.
Yeah. There's a little bit of electricity there.
There is. You can feel the spark wherever you're at right now, can't you?
Static, at least.
Let's talk about some electricity. There's a segue. Let's talk about Tesla right now. So Tesla.
What a lead-in,
wasn't it? Yeah. Thanks.
Good job.
Thanks. So Tesla reporting right now. So and we're going to talk about why specifically we're talking about their numbers. But if you remember, Tesla last quarter had a pretty down quarter to where they weren't meeting their demand. They weren't producing enough cars, and henceforth they were losing a lot of money. And now they came out with their quarter 3 reportings, or this latest quarter, talking about their Model 3s, and they have blown past all projections. They produced more cars. They produced 87,048 vehicles and delivered 95,000. And that, I think, feels like the really key part in there is delivering the vehicles, because as more and more people start picking up these Teslas, there's a real lack in getting your cars on time. And this is something it sounds like they're finally picking back up and able to deliver these on time.
Yeah, speaking of tornadoes, I think like people, maybe 6 months ago were ready to grab their pitchforks and fire. Yeah, there was so much doom and gloom around Tesla. So this is great news, I think. But the question is it enough?
Yeah.
Right? So I guess we'll know Q3 or something like that when they release their financial numbers. But
right. Yeah. As far as whether they're actually making money on it.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I think for the electric vehicle industry as a whole, and this is kind of what I wanted to bring up too, and I definitely want to see what everybody's opinions are on this. Whether you're happy for this or not. I mean, obviously, if you're not invested, financially in Tesla, that's one thing. But this is just for the electrical vehicle industry. I mean, I think the more that are getting sold, the better, because the lower that price will go down eventually. If Tesla does well, all of these other companies will probably do well as, in addition to that. But that's kind of what I'm looking at as, what it's going to be over the whole.
For me, this spurs innovation and competition. So anytime Tesla is doing well, or Porsche's announcement on their electric vehicle 2 years ago, all that stuff, it creates excitement. And people are always eager to get their hands on what the next generation of technology is.
Right.
So like I think even just when the Model S and the Model X came out, every time, and now the Model 3, it creates additional excitement, energy. It causes, I think, traditional car manufacturers to really up their game. You know, they have to scramble. And so anything that Tesla is doing that is positive, I think is a win for us.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, for the consumers in general. I mean, like you said, it makes the traditional car manufacturers, they have to adapt to it.
Yeah.
You know, they have to change what they're doing. And usually they're not the people that get pushed around. There's not that many car manufacturers. So Tesla being able to do that, push the needle, really can help a lot.
They've stirred the pot so much.
Yeah.
And would you buy a Model 3?
I would consider it. I was actually looking at them this morning while we were doing this. I'm like, well, let's just take a look at what the customizations are on there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a nice car. I do like riding in a Tesla. I don't know if I'm ready to buy one yet.
Yeah. I think for me, like, one of the things is just the fear of, like, what happens to Tesla right, in another 2, 3, 4 years.
Right.
Makes me a little bit hesitant on whether I would pull the button or not on, or, you know, buy one. But I think, again, what happens to me is I'm looking at the underlying technology. I think there needs to be breakthroughs in battery and charging technology.
Yeah.
That's where I'm really excited because, again, as Tesla does good, it forces other car manufacturers and other technology manufacturers around the batteries and the charging and all that stuff to continue to innovate. And I think at the end of the day, 5 years from now, we're just going to be, I think, sitting here going, we got amazing technology in cars now.
Right, yeah, because everybody else is going to have to adapt to that. Yeah, I didn't even think about that aspect of batteries and then the different applications those can go toward.
Over-the-air updates.
Over-the-air updates.
Like my car gets over-the-air updates. It's not on Tesla now, but I know that's because of what Tesla did.
Yeah,
right? So
everybody's trying to catch up to how they adopted to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. I think it's good news for all of us. Let us know what you think, though. Drop in your comments, your suggestions, questions, whatever you want to talk about, and whatever platform you're watching on, and we will definitely address those as we go through. And speaking of comments, it is now time for a little bit of Read 'em and Weep. This is where we take a look at some of the comments that you have left across our different platforms.
I forgot my tissues again.
Oh, man. So it's going to get the waterworks going in here. So this is where we take a look at some of the different comments that you have left across our many different platforms, and we address them directly to you right now, to the camera, looking us in the eyes. Here it is, Dave. Regarding Facebook cracks down on fraudulent miracle cures, vaccine misinformation. The world is in trouble when Facebook has to dictate common sense. Oof, Dave, that is so true and cutting.
Yes, but it all depends on your point of view and reference. Like, I mean, I think it's just sad that we've come to this point.
Right, that we even got to this.
Yeah. People have to rely on a platform to, dictate what's true or not and crack down on things versus people using common sense.
Yeah, that is true. And actually, we're going to be talking about this. We've got Matt Katz, who's going to be joining us here in a little bit, talking about this specific Facebook push. But yeah, Facebook's the one that has to tell you, like, no, you need to stop sharing that.
But you know what, like, freaks me the heck out are the deep fakes, like the videos and the images and the audio. Like, that to me is like, okay, that defies common sense.
Right.
Because you literally are seeing it.
Yeah.
And hearing it.
Yeah, and there's specific ones now where you can match the voice, you can match, that you can take a still image and make it into a video. I mean, it's pretty incredible.
Some of those examples that are showing up on YouTube are just amazing.
Yeah.
Like, and it's freaky.
Yeah.
It totally freaks me out.
Dave, we hear you.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're getting
I'm
at
weeping
right there.
with you.
We're all weeping with Dave.
They're not tears of joy.
All right, Westlove. Okay, there's always something good here with the television ones. Regarding Vizio P-Series Quantum X versus Sony X950G, can Vizio hang with Sony? Funny how you say, okay, Google. Sorry, everybody at home. One of the TVs in the back activated Google and listened to all of your review. Google knows before the rest of us. So somebody's Google Home listened to Caleb for about 10 minutes. So that's what that has to do
Google sneaking in here.
Right.
Uh-oh.
Well, Westlove, when whoever else I just set off there, Google, so now they're all listening as well, so thank you, and I hope we're treating them well.
That's a total blooper. I mean, that's the life we live in now. You can say, okay, Google, or hey, Siri, or, hey, Alexa.
You've just set off everything all at once.
Yes. Buy me everything.
George, regarding DT Live, Spider-Man's intellectual property rights are being infringed upon. Spider-Man does not produce webbing. It is tech, which should be discussed on a new Digital Trends Live segment. Real Tech and Sci-Fi, hosted by Tosses Ring and Hat. Sorry, Greg, you're out. Oh, man.
He does have a great name. George Soul.
Yeah,
Greg
that's true.
Nibbler. I don't know.
Yeah.
Very competing names.
Man, George Soul's pretty good for that. Real Tech and Sci-Fi. Okay.
He doesn't produce webbing, though?
Yeah, see, and that was the discussion yesterday. So I think it was yesterday that Adrian was in here, and we were talking about this. It was kind of like a Batarang kind of thing, and we were discussing whether or not there was a more Spider-Man-like or Batman-like. This is why I'm not going to host that show just right now by my descriptions here. So I can tell my audition
dark
just
hole
failed.
for you.
Dang
Yes.
it, that audition did not work out.
Let me pull it back. Pull it back.
So does Spider-Man produce webbing?
I think the original ones he did.
Yeah.
But the movies, they
He's got,
use
like, a tool.
he's got a little web spray.
Yeah, web spray.
I mean, at least that's what I saw in Toys R Us
Oh,
when
man.
it existed.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, George, clearly we need your help, and please let us know the answer to that question. We appreciate it. All right. A, I'll just go with that. Regarding robo-taxis, take another step forward towards commercial use in Cali. This is a good use of AI. At least these robot drivers won't abduct their passengers and, or will they? Oh, okay. I see where you're going here. Bigger picture, are the robots going to be abducting us?
Well, it depends on who's programming them to
That's
do
true.
those nefarious things.
Yes.
Yeah. It actually, there's talk about going down a deep dark hole.
Yeah.
I mean that just there's
It does.
Lot of
It opens up a
imaginative
lot right
ways
there.
that you could use that. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I just see that as Total Recall for some reason. Always, anytime
with
someone
Johnny
says
Cab?
Robo Taxi, yeah,
Where are you going?
that picture is always in my head. I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Somebody's
welcome being
gotta
driven.
do that.
I know, right? You know that's gonna happen. Like even if it doesn't happen by accident,
Somebody's gonna make it.
purposely making that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
You can't pass that opportunity.
No, you can't. That's just too much. It's too perfect for it. So yeah, at least these robot drivers won't abduct their passengers. Yeah. I mean, I guess we'll have to see. You did talk about the over-the-air updates. Somebody got in there and it's like,
Or like
them
how
on
you
to-
got credit card skimmers, now you got just plant a robo-taxi
yeah.
and bring them to your warehouse and rob people.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think of that. Boom.
Yeah.
I mean, there's part of the movie right there.
That's right.
All right, we're working out a lot of things here on today's show. All right, we've got one more coming up here for our segment, and wherever you're watching, we do appreciate it. So just letting everybody know, we can get your comments and your questions, all of that coming through. Dan, excuse me. Dan, regarding Loplift built the first e-bike that has a built-in treadmill. No one, absolutely no one. Loplift, come walk on our bikes. Okay.
It's a very confusing concept.
It is.
Can you imagine pitching that? We're building a bike that you walk
Imagine a bike, but you don't pedal.
You walk on it.
But there's a treadmill, but it's on the bike.
Yeah. It's kind of like the VR games where you have to actually physically run. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, that sounds great at first until you're running for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
You just die.
You got a sweaty,
I died again. I got to run all the way over there.
sweaty goggles on. Yeah. Yeah, that would be weird just seeing that going down the street, although Portland would be the place I would see somebody with a treadmill bike walking.
Can you imagine how long those are? They're pretty long.
It's got to be huge.
Yeah.
It's like the Cadillac of bikes.
You can't bring that in the elevator when you get to work.
That does seem like a real pain.
When someone's trying to rob you and you grab your treadmill bike, it's literally
away.
run,
Walking as fast as you can.
run away.
Well, you can check that out at digitaltrends.com. It means we have an article about it, and you can take a look there. So again, read them and weep. This is where we take a look at your comments, your questions, your suggestions that come through across our platform.
Wait, I want to know, would you buy a treadmill bike?
I don't know if I would. I don't know if I could bring myself to do it.
I wonder if it's a lot heavier.
Like, I mean, it'd have to be heavy.
It's kind of weird too, like if you're trying to go uphill and you can't, you don't have the power to do it, so you got to get it off and walk anyway.
You're pushing your treadmill bike. Yeah. I just don't see how this is going to work out. But now I am curious enough. I do want it. I kind of want to try it. So we need to get one here for the office. And you can just walk around the office on your treadmill bike.
You can't cut corners very well with that. Sure.
It's like a 10-point turn. All right. Anyway, that's the treadmill bike. We should have done that as a topic now that I know so much about it. So let's go on to something else, trending. So taking a look at what the trending topics are as we do here every day. Going on to this, it has to do with Samsung. At the beginning of the year, this was the biggest story, I feel like, going on for gadgets and technology, and phones in particular, the Galaxy Fold. And then, man, it just really tapered off. So the Galaxy Fold, if you remember correctly, is supposed to come out at, I think, the end of April was when people were going to actually have them in their hands. They took deposits. Then the issues started happening where the screens were peeling off, and they had to kind of basically refund everybody their money and cancel the rollout. Well, now it's being reported that supposedly they've gotten everything fixed. So it's finally fixed where it's not peeling off.
Yeah. Well, people technically were peeling that off.
That's true.
They wasn't peeling off on its own. They were like, oh, why is there a screen protector on this?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. There were some issues with one of the screens shorting out, too. I know from a couple of the videos.
And dust or dirt getting up underneath them, and things like that,
Yeah. So
well, new technology.
It's true.
And they were preview samples. So I don't know. I think it goes back to kind of like my Tesla comment. Like the technology, the new innovative technology, I think is exciting. I don't have a need for a Samsung Galaxy Fold, but I can appreciate where the technology will take us. Hopefully in a couple years, because what I'm really excited over is just thin screens, and when and the flexibility. Now they got the roll-up ones, so all this work that they're doing that has led to the foldable technology has been happening for 10 plus years leading up. So
yeah. I mean, I think you're right on that, like where it's going to go, because they also have several other patents that we've seen some kind of renderings of, and some of those look really cool. There was one where it did kind of roll out, so it was like a stand-up phone, and then it rolls out from the sides.
Yeah,
like something along those lines.
The e-readers that they were showing, 5 years ago at CES. Yeah. They also have the TVs that you can slap on a window, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
So that kind of technology, where that can end up, that's great. And so this is them saying that they've pretty much got it figured out. So the Samsung co-CEO, DJ Koh, actually made a statement to some reporters talking about how he pushed it to market before it was ready. And if you remember, there was kind of a big rush there because there was basically 3 different companies and possibly more that were working on it that were all announcing that they were going to have foldable phones, and everybody wants to be the first one. So Samsung clearly pushed it out, and he even said that. He said it was embarrassing, told some reporters about that, but now that they've gone back and they've refined it and apparently have made it right, we still don't know when it's going to come out.
I'm really curious because they were saying one of the fixes was they still have that screen protector looking film. They just tucked it under the edges now, or the bezel.
Yeah.
So it's still there. So I'm immediately the first thought in my head is, so wear and tear, what happens?
Right, if you drop it or just regular
rubbing
use,
and use, because if it feels it looked like it was a sticker, plastic or I don't know what, but
right. What are those standard, the screen covers that come with it when you buy a new phone? Yeah.
So what happens when it wears out? You got to take it in, they fix it, replace it, you buy a new one? Interesting to see what happens.
$600 or whatever it is, they better fix it. I would be asking for that, but
I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be, I'm interested to see how people end up using them.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll have to see when they do come out, although Samsung does have their event on August 7th where they're expected to announce the new Note 10. And maybe we'll get to see something about that. Maybe they'll have more details. Possibly it'll be later this year. I could see it maybe being around
I bet
the
they launch it separately.
Yeah, I think a separate
maybe
event.
I don't know, Black Friday would be a horrible day for it. But I mean, why take the thunder away from the Galaxy 10?
Right, push it all to that and just do this separately. Well, that's where they're at right now. So supposedly getting some of that worked out. So we'll have to see where it ends up. But
don't sound so sad.
Overall,
it's good.
No, I mean it's good. It's good. So it's good. So the Galaxy Fold, supposedly being fixed. That's the reports that we're getting. Let's continue on, talk about some other cutting-edge technology. And this, I think, is really cool. If you've ever had to wear glasses, you know what this pain is. And this is from a group in Stanford where they're working on a different kind of smart glass. And I'm not talking about the Google Glass kind or anything like that. This is something for actual people who need corrective eyesight lenses. And these things are called autofocals. And so what they're working on is making sure that everything stays sharp and in focus wherever your eye is looking. So if you know, like if you've ever tried to imagine like bifocals or even just regular glasses, it'll focus at a certain distance, but when you look, you've got to readjust things to make sure that you can see things and keep it in focus no matter what the distance. This would change depending on where your eyes go.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
They autofocus depending on what you're looking at, and that's, I mean, again, amazing, cool technology that has, I'm going to throw this in there, tech for change. It has a positive impact on people with disabilities.
Yeah.
Or some type of, vision issues. So
right. Which affects pretty much everybody, especially the more we're all on screens anyway, where all of our eyes are going to be needing these things.
I refuse to wear glasses.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's why my eyes twitch all the time.
You zoom in close, you can see every time his eye twitches.
That's right.
But yeah, see, showing it right there, and how this is working in this demonstration, I think that's a really, really, like you said, tech for change. It helps out people who have eye issues, which again is all of us.
Yep.
And that's something that's kind of using. It goes into even medical tech and all of that.
But I think people that the layperson like you and I, where we just have general vision problems due to whatever.
Right.
I don't know if this would be this is appropriate for us.
Yeah, you think this is more specialized to somebody with a larger issue?
Yeah, I think a real medical issue, and the reason being is that I can see how, if you're wearing something like this and it autofocuses for you, your eyes, your eyes aren't doing that anymore.
Yeah.
So how does that end up affecting you long term, right?
Right.
Your eyes aren't actually using the muscles.
Yeah, that's true. So so if you take them off, then you're even worse off.
So if it's kind of like a wheelchair or something like that. If you use a wheelchair to get around, but you're physically fine to walk, or maybe you can walk, but maybe not very far. Anything like that. You use a wheelchair all the time, your muscles deteriorate.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I didn't think about that aspect. So maybe it makes us worse off. Although as we go forward, when we have more and more of these accessories and high-tech accessories that we can use, maybe we don't even need it anymore.
I still think it's going to come. Things for us is going to come in a contact lens, and even though some people are like, I don't want to wear a contact lens, I think it kind of comes back to the technology that I think will eventually get into something like a contact lens will be so
Smart
much more meaningful.
Lenses.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have cameras in there, and then everybody's watching everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and then when my eye twitches just every time I take a photo of you.
Right. That's all right. So that is the story on that. You can follow up on that at digitaltrends.com, talking about Stanford and their smart glasses research, in particular that autofocals issue. Let us know what you think about that. I do see one comment, Keelan, LOL, Dan Gall, too tough for glasses. All right, we've got one more trending story here at the top of the show, and this is something that I think a lot of people have been talking about lately. We even had our Trends with Benefits podcast last week, just to plug that, was all about this, the streaming television wars, and how every company is trying to come up with their own streaming television service now because of the Netflix effect and Hulu and Amazon Prime. And this one of the big ones that's getting into the game is Warner Media. Now, off the top, saying Warner Media may not sound like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get their streaming service. We're finding out more and more about what they've really got in store, including the name. So its potential right now, I guess the leading name for this is going to be HBO Max. That's what they're working towards. That's not official, but that's what they're leaning toward, because they do own all of HBO's content. They own Cinemax. And what the plan is, so at the offset, it's $16 to $17 a month, which is a lot when you think about a streaming service. Yeah.
Yeah.
But here's where they're trying to make up for it. What their push is that you'll get HBO, Cinemax, and all of this other stuff that they've got. And that's where I wanted to get into, and just to see how people feel about this. If it's still $16, $17 is still too much, or if this gets into more of a range where you'd want it. I'm always curious to know what people would think about this. So to give you an idea, they own Friends, The Big Bang Theory, and several other.
Seinfeld. Family Matters.
Yeah.
There's a ton of old school
shows that they own. And The Big Bang Theory still gets a ton of people watching that, even in the reruns. And Friends, obviously, Netflix paid $100 million for 1 year of Friends just to have it on their platform. So that would include all of those. Then they also have some other original series, including a Gremlins prequel.
Oh my
animated
gosh.
Gremlins prequel series. Yeah, which that might get me interested. So yeah, there it is. They even released this for it. Gremlins,
Secrets of the Mogwai?
Secrets of the Mogwai. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I'm kind of into that. So they have that. There's going to be an original series with Kaylee Cuoco and one with Anna Kendrick. So they're bringing in some people to try to beef it up with some original programming as well. Yeah. And the other thing is talking about bringing back old shows.
Yeah.
With
Full House.
Yeah, Full House being successful.
Yep.
They mentioned such shows as Step by Step.
Step by Step.
Who wants a Step by Step? Like continuing on.
That's what I was thinking.
Right? Like, Step by Step. Isn't that what TV's Patrick Duffy? That one. I think that's that one.
Hanging with Mr. Cooper.
Hang with Mr. Cooper.
Yep.
Bring Mark Curry back.
Family Matters.
Yeah, Family Matters. You've had
Perfect Strangers.
Urkel at 45.
I know, right? Perfect Strangers, that show, I never watched that show growing up because it drove me batty for some reason.
Really?
Apparently there was like a petition and like a ton of people wanting like a newer version of that.
Really? I didn't.
Yeah.
People are that amped up where they're starting online petitions.
I'm paying $60 a month for that. Yeah.
We want Balky. So yeah,
there we go, right there.
So yeah, bringing back all these shows.
Maybe I would find that funny nowadays. I don't know.
Right? What do you think about this? Is this something that would actually given all of that? If you get your new run of Perfect Strangers and Family Matters, Urkel at 45, is that enough? Is $16 to $17? Would you be willing to pay it, or is that still too much? That's what my main question was.
For me, any of those shows would not get me over to pay $16 a month. But, it would depend on the thing that I love about Netflix right now are the original series.
Yeah.
And old TV, I think the reason why I hate watching TV, like on traditional stuff, and the main reason is I feel like it's just so soft. Like, I don't know, basically they can't use their full creativity when doing the shows because there's so many restrictions placed on them. Yeah. And that's where I'm like, okay, if they're going to launch this service and do like Perfect Strangers again or something like that, but it's still going to be the whole, or like the A-Team where nobody dies, like it's like, darn kids spoiled me again. Like, it's like, no, like that's so, to me, it's the same stuff from episode to episode.
An R-rated Perfect Strangers. That's what we're going.
But that's why I love like Netflix and Amazon and those guys now because the whole fact that they have creative freedom to do what they want to show, the direction of the show. So.
Yeah, which does make a big difference. So we'll have to see where this goes. But that service may even launch end of this year, early next year, so it's coming, and that's Warner Media, and so we'll have to see where that goes. Well, all right, I know we're out of time. As usual, when Dan's on here, we have too much fun, and then I go over on the time. Dan, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And for everybody who's following along, all those stories that we just covered, you can follow up at digitaltrends.com and let us know what you think on those, and as usual, we'll talk about them. So we've got more coming up. Coming up next, we have Henry Bezet, who is the CTO and Senior Vice President of Automotive for Flex. We're going to talk about their efforts in connected cars and automotive innovation. Lots to talk about there. I'm excited for this conversation. Drop in your comments, your questions. We'll be back in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. Again, we're live here every weekday at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you these tech headlines, news, and discussions that you need to get through the day. And that's what we're going to be talking about right now is some tech headlines and basically an industry in general. The automotive industry, it's really exciting where it's going with the world of technology. And we have somebody who's certainly an expert to talk about that right now. Joining us, we have Henry Bazet, the CTO and Senior Vice President of Automotive for Flex. Hello.
Hello, how you doing?
Doing great. Excited to talk about what your initiatives are with Flex. And just to maybe bring everybody up to speed here to start off, can we get just a little bit of a history of your background in the industry and then a general description of what Flex is, and then we'll go into some of the specifics.
No, absolutely. So I spent 25 years in the auto industry working for Ford and then Kia. Joined Flex about 14, 15 months ago. Flex is basically a company that has a lot of industries that we work with in terms of automotive, medical, consumer, $26.7 billion revenue company. We are a partner to a lot of the companies that produce products for them, working very closely.
So covering a lot of different territory within that. So talking about the automotive side in particular, let's go into that. And I wanted to talk specifically about this concept of the third living space. Can you let us know what that means and maybe give us an overview of the automotive side of things?
No, absolutely. So we are in a connected world, if you think about it, right? So in our homes, in our offices, at work, and then there's the vehicle, which we spend, anywhere from 30 minutes to 90 minutes of commute time every day. And in that space itself is that third medium in which connectivity is becoming more dominant, and then it is the place in which we start to conduct a lot of possibilities there.
And are you looking at it from by the time we go to autonomous vehicles, or even before then, some different ways?
It's a journey. So if you think about it today, the connected vehicle today has a lot of services that can be had with it. So in terms of the telematics services, in terms of location-based services. But really the ultimate utilization of the connected vehicle, once we enter the autonomous space, it is then when we start to realize that potential, because now it becomes the office on wheels or living room on wheels. Mm-hmm. And imagine the possibilities there.
Oh yeah, if you don't have to worry about paying attention to that, that extra time that you have in that commute. Looking at this, just from some other standpoints, where do you think we're at right now, or what are some of the things that Flex is working on right now, and then we'll talk about the future as well.
We are definitely at that beginning of that exciting journey, and so we are on that level 4 partnership models with our customers. So we are producing for them these solutions and working very closely with them on the architecture, on the development, on the execution side of the business. And so it is at the beginning. A lot of these deployments right now are centered around mobility services, transportation as a service. But ultimately, as you see the migration, this would become ubiquitous and available to all customers down the road. But at the beginning, it is really serving that mobility space at large.
So talking about, you brought up transportation as a service. Can we go into that a little bit more, kind of get that more of a definition on what that is and what's needed to really fully utilize that?
So transportation has been essentially throughout the decades and the centuries is your traditional model. So people buy a vehicle and use that for transportation, buy or lease, that is. You can use public transportation for going from point A to point B. But transportation is being disrupted in many ways because now the access economy and the sharing model is creating all these new business models. If you think about the ride-hailing, the ride-sharing companies are out there and dominating the market. And so this is what transportation is all about, is multimodal, is bridging that different modes of transportation between vehicle, train, even air travel, even the other modes of travel, underground or what have you. So all that travel comes together in kind of a one equation to produce your solution for that journey from point A to point B.
So like from the time you leave your house to the time you walk into your office door, all those different ways that you would need to take to get there.
Exactly. It could be multi-modes of that type of transportation to get you from point A to point B. Yeah.
Looking for, toward the future, what are some changes in technology that you think would really help this, that are going to make a big difference when it comes to that kind of a service?
Well, ultimately, the vehicle has to have a level of autonomy and level of capability from a connectivity perspective. So we talk about level 4 and level 4 plus autonomy coming into play. We talk about 5G as a possibility for communications. We talk about V2X becoming more ubiquitous because today, the vehicle has to talk to the world. And all these have to come together to produce that ultimate mobility service or that ultimate transportation and service capability. So the world needs to talk to the different aspects of the people are in it. And so pedestrians, if you think of cyclists, you think of different various infrastructure points, all have to talk to each other in a very seamless and a very easy way. So that way we can simplify and ease that whole equation of transportation for the individual or for whoever's using it.
With all of that data that's being transferred with that, like say, once we do get 5G rolling out, because that will certainly help out with that vehicle-to-vehicle communication, how do we keep all that data secure?
It is one of the biggest challenges that the industry is facing. So let's just be very clear. The industry together have come around finding those opportunities through like auto ISAC, cybersecurity. These are auto OEMs coming together, figuring out ways on how to do that. But really, cybersecurity is the biggest challenge in my mind from a technology point of view. How to secure the entire data packet end to end, how to make sure that any deployments that we have in terms of solutions are not going to be open to any vector threats. And that's really important because while you have a service that is functioning very well and serving our community, at the same time, we have to protect people and we have to protect our services or services from being hacked or being vectored through. So it is a challenge. It is an evolving challenge. A lot of companies out there are working on solutions. So it is, again, a journey. And in terms of recognition within the various players, I think everybody recognizes this as a very important and critical aspect of the entire solution.
I think with that many different people working on it and, companies like Flex also paying attention to this, I feel like we're going to figure that out and get that solved. But yeah, so many exciting things that, going forward, but then also these things that we have to figure out how to fix or keep from becoming a problem going forward as well.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Henry, I want to say thank you very much for joining us here. Is there a place I can direct people to find out more about what Flex does?
Absolutely. I mean, the really easy one is flex.com. And then our PR team will be, communications team, will be more than happy to provide additional information. But I would start there and we go in terms of using the links on the website to contact our teams, and they'll be responding very quickly and discuss anything that is required.
Great. Well, Henry, thank you very much for joining us here on Digital Trends Live.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So another fun discussion that we get to have here on Digital Trends. I love having these talks, talking about the future of things, the way that we travel, transportation as a service. That whole concept is very interesting. We've got lots of interesting conversations coming up, though. So here's what's going to happen next. We're going to take a quick break. We've got Matt Katz, who's going to be joining us here in studio, bringing us up to date on a couple of news topics. I'm just going to say this. Chinese border guards installing spyware apps on tourists' phones, and Facebook and that whole cracking down on misinformation when it comes to vaccines. We're going to talk about those two things, probably a lot more within there. We'll give you all of the subtext that you need to understand what's going on. Stick around, back in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. And welcome back to Digital Trends Live. Again, thanks for joining us. Whatever platform you're on, hit that subscribe button. That way you get the notifications when we do go live. We're also at digitaltrends.com/live, so lots of places to find us and join the conversation. And let's have a conversation right now. I'm Greg Dibbler, joined by Matt Katz. Hello, Matt.
Hello.
So the topics I know that we're covering today, I have to say I was unaware of either of these, which is great. That's why you keep us up to date on this. Kind of shocking.
Oh, yeah.
All the time. Let's talk about this phone thing that's going on in China right now.
So, if you are a tourist and you're going into this remote region of China, you're crossing the border guards will actually take your phone, force you to unlock it, and then eventually put some spyware on it that will track or look and see what you've done on your phone. So that means your search history, who you're talking to, what you're searching for, what apps you have installed, and they're scanning it essentially for information they don't like.
That's insane. I mean,
yeah.
That's the worst nightmare, 1984 style, invasion of your privacy with your phone.
Yeah, and I think what's going on here is this app has actually been around for a while. The Chinese government has installed it on the phones of people who actually live in the Xinjiang region. It's a region with a very large Muslim population where there's a lot of surveillance going on. So they have been spying on people's phones for a long time. What's new is that if you want to visit, if you're a tourist and you have your phone, they're going to look at all your stuff. And the searches that they're looking for are pretty, anything from Islamic extremism to if you've looked up books by the Dalai Lama, or if you're looking for information about fasting during Ramadan, that's the sort of stuff this app is looking for. It's not clear what happens if they find this, but we know that some of the people who actually live in China who have been caught with some of this, I guess, what the Chinese government considers bad information, they've had to essentially be taken away to political re-education camps, which is not great.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, this is the Chinese government, which I guess may not come as big of a surprise that they're monitoring all their citizens. I mean, just let alone when you're walking down the street there with all the facial recognition software that's everywhere. So I suppose that's to be expected. But I mean, if they're doing this now to tourists, I mean, is this something that we have to be concerned with that's going to go outside of this, or what are the concerns here?
So generally, a lot of countries will follow China's lead when it comes to surveillance. So I would not be shocked if you start to see this in certain countries all around the world. Even entering the U.S., there have been instances of Border Patrol at airports and at physical borders asking you to unlock your phone and looking through your phone for anything that might be incriminating. You don't actually have to unlock your phone if you're a U.S. citizen. If you're a visitor and you don't have a visa to come into the country, or you're relying on the Border Patrol to give you a visa, they might be able to reject you. We also have seen the U.S. government has started to ask for social media profiles.
Yeah.
So links to your social media profiles if you want to come into the U.S., if you're looking for a visa. So a lot of people that are coming into the U.S., I'm from Canada. If I didn't have a green card and I were coming to visit, I automatically get a visa, so this doesn't apply to me. But if you're coming from a whole bunch of countries around the world, when you apply for that tourist visa, they're going to ask you for your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram, all your different profiles, so they can look through it and see what you've posted, which is a little scary.
So do you have to do that? You have to comply to that?
If you want a visa, then yes. And if they catch you without, or if they catch you not having shared the right social media profiles, you might be denied a visa.
Wow. But for the U.S., if you're a citizen or you have a green card, you don't have to unlock your phone?
No.
Okay.
They will give you trouble about it most likely, but you don't have to.
But legally, you do not have to.
You don't have to.
That's certainly not a trend that we want to see continue and spread outside of there, but that's something to be aware of. So if you are visiting China and specifically this region, I wouldn't be surprised if it went to some other regions as well.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, putting that app on there, and there's a write-up about this, of course, at digitaltrends.com too, so you can follow up with that and be aware of that. But man, that's some scary stuff. So let's continue on and talk about what Facebook has going on right now. this.
I feel
Facebook
like we're always
crackdown.
talking about Facebook,
Right?
but Facebook is huge. And as we've seen over the past little bit, Facebook is a place where misinformation about health tends to spread. We've seen anti-vaccine information, and Facebook is now cracking down on what it calls miracle cures. So you may have been scrolling through your feed and seen someone posting an article about crystals that will cure cancer and happen to cost $200, or all sorts of things that give people false hope and want to take their money, that will promise to cure all sorts of diseases. Facebook is finally cracking down on this because it's been spreading through the platform. YouTube's been having an issue with this as well. And essentially the changes that they've made have made it so that misleading health information, essentially fake health news, will be deprioritized in your news feed, which means it either won't show up in the news feed or it will be really, really low down. You have to scroll for a while. Some of them will be labeled with links to the official websites where you can see proper information like the CDC vaccine page in a couple of different areas. But this has been a long time coming. It's not clear whether it's actually going to do anything because a lot of these vaccine misinformation and miracle cures are posted on groups where people are actually going to these groups and checking things. But at least for now, it's not going to show up quite as much in your newsfeed.
I think there's a couple of things there. One, I think it says a lot about our society that Facebook has to be the one to say, like, no, the crystals aren't going to cure your cancer, and trying to curb that side. That's a whole different issue. But as far as what they're going to be doing, like, I understand that side of it. But what about like anti-vaccine information and things like that? Are they going to be controlling some of that?
So we actually reached out to Facebook, and they were a little cagey, but they did say that vaccine misinformation is going to fall under these new rules.
Okay.
Back in March, they took a couple of steps towards combating vaccine misinformation. So these are people that are claiming essentially that vaccines are dangerous.
Okay.
And they deprioritized those in the news feed. They made it so that some of these groups that spread misinformation about vaccines can't fundraise. And there's been a few different changes. That being said, those changes went into effect in March, and they haven't really done much. We are in the U.S. In the middle of an unprecedented measles outbreak, which has largely been attributed to people that are not vaccinated. We had one earlier this year here in the Portland area. There's one going on in New York right now. I believe there's some in the Midwest as well. Largely attributed to some of this misinformation that's spreading through social media. So it hasn't really been effective, these changes that have been implemented so far. The new changes might do something. We'll have to wait and see to see if this actually makes it so that these ideas don't quite spread as quickly as they did. And we'll be covering that on digitaltrends.com.
Well, and we keep you up to date on everything here on Digital Trends, but God, it's just so frustrating that we're to that point. We're having measles outbreaks because of a stupid Facebook post that was shared.
Yep. And it's, this is a big moneymaker too. People sell ebooks, they sell, like we said, the aforementioned crystals that they say cure cancer, natural remedies that don't actually have any medical value. So Facebook is trying to fight this, but there's only so much they can do without completely deleting these posts, which would raise a whole bunch of other issues that I don't think Facebook wants to tackle right now.
Right, that does open up. I mean, they're in a tough spot with it. I mean, I will acknowledge that. Facebook's done a lot of things of their own doing, to give themselves a hard time. That's a tough spot because you have these terrible people selling things, but at the end of the day, if people are clicking on it and buying it, you can't really stop them from doing that.
Yeah, and it's also, this is something that I've said a few times on this show, Facebook has dueling priorities because they want to make sure that you are on Facebook, that you're clicking and engaging with posts, that you're always using the platform. And this is something, vaccine misinformation is something that effectively drives engagement. People engage with it. And that's kind of what Facebook wants, not about vaccine misinformation or that sort of thing. But they do want people using the platform, so this is a balancing act that they have to strike.
Yeah, well, we'll see where it goes and how it actually gets put into effect. But all of this is at digitaltrends.com as well. You can read far more in depth there. And we keep you up to date with all kinds of news. And Matt does an excellent job on bringing us up to date on all of these different things that are going on. Yes, Matt, thank you very much for being here with us today.
Of course, glad to be here.
Always fun, and like I said, follow digitaltrends.com, and you can be up to date on everything else that's going on in the world of technology. We're going to take a break. We've got another guest who's going to be joining us. We have Chris Lamontagne from Teespring talking about their platform and talking about empowering independent creators and everything else that they're doing with some unique partnerships that they have. So we're going to discuss all that. We're broadcasting live. We'll take your comments, your questions. We'll be back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. Again, we broadcast live every weekday, and I want to remind everybody that we do have a smart TV app as well that you can download and watch on your television wherever you are. So just keep that in mind and download that app. All right, let's continue on talking about some technology, talking about platforms, and talking about basically empowering independent creators. I know that's in part what we're going to be discussing and some unique partnerships. Joining us right now, we have Chris Lamontagne, the CEO of Teespring. Hello.
Hey, Greg. How are you doing? Thank you for having me.
Doing great. Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. Excited to talk about this and in particular these partnerships that you have. But can we give everybody an overview of what Teespring is and maybe what problems it was trying to solve to begin with?
Sure. Yeah. So Teespring is a platform to create and sell online. And practically what that means is if you want to start an e-commerce business, you can use Teespring to create your product, support with your marketing and distribution, and also the kind of the fulfillment aspect as well. And where we kind of were born from were kind of this print on demand revolution of being able to create a commerce business. And practically the problem we've been trying to solve is a lot of like the complexity that's existed within the supply chain and some of the complications that exist in e-commerce.
Right. Starting up a business can be far more complex than I think sometimes people realize. There's a lot of factors. That's probably a huge understatement. But Teespring, so if somebody comes to you and they say somebody's got an idea for, we'll just say T-shirts or something like that. Yeah. What would be the steps then to understand how that process works?
Yeah, so and that's where we started. We started as an apparel business in the beginning, and we've kind of since that kind of expanded out to a range of nearly 160 different products that you can create on the platform. But you would come to teespring.com. You'd be able to design your products in real time, be able to see the product, be able to kind of play around with the designs, and then you would launch your listing. So the whole process of kind of design, or from idea inception to actually creating a product, is incredibly short. It takes less than 2 minutes to actually launch your product and that to be a real thing. But then beyond that, if you start to then think of the complexities of understanding the supply chain and customer service and shipping and payments and all of those kind of more complicated pieces that you called out, well, that's taken care of by the platform as well. So it's incredibly end-to-end. As the kind of the support that we provide to independent creators.
That does seem like, certainly empower independent creators to be able to put something up there, see if it works. It probably gives it a lot more leeway to test out that creative boundary without having to invest, if you want to make $1,000 in T-shirts or something like that, that's a lot of money that you have to invest up front. And if nobody likes the design, yeah, you're out.
And and that was something, Greg, that we saw. We used to hear horror stories of people who'd invested, huge amounts of capital in kind of ordering boxes of T-shirts and boxes of products that was kind of sat in their houses and garages. Essentially, that's really been the thing that we've been able to kind of go and solve. But as you kind of quite correctly called out, the cost impact of that, Teespring is a free service. So the way kind of the payments infrastructure works is it's print on demand. So you actually only kind of pay Teespring anything if you actually make a sale. So it's totally free.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, let's talk about this partnership that you have going with Twitch and in particular, game streamers. And can you walk us through what that is?
Yeah, so this kind of started probably about 18 months ago. And what we've really observed from a consumer behavior perspective is this kind of new way of the consumer starting to shop from a perspective of content and commerce are merging together. So, for example, things like obviously Instagram shopping and buyable pins on Pinterest and YouTube, kind of clickable shoppable ads. We've really observed the consumer starting to kind of change their behavior rather than go into a .com site. We've noticed that consumers want to be able to buy whilst absorbing commerce. Whilst absorbing the content that they love. So this kind of started for Teespring. We actually started with a partnership that we did with YouTube probably about a year ago now, where we allowed YouTubers to create content on Teespring and to be able to display their products directly beneath the video that they have. We've now gone a step further, specifically working with Twitch of in-stream kind of merch extension. So what that means is whilst the streamer the actual gamer is actually streaming to their viewers, then you can actually view the products underneath as they're streaming in game, which just creates this really nice kind of very tangible way to shop and to absorb the products and content together.
I love that idea to make it easier for independent people to make more money. I mean, everybody wants to be an independent star on whatever it is, but you have to make some funds to actually sustain that. So that's great that's empowering people to sell more of their products and connect with their fans too at the same time. I noticed something that I was really interested in is you have a subscriber only idea. Can you walk us through what that is?
Yeah, so this is something that we developed specifically for Twitch, and the way we kind of approached that was we understand that the connection between what it means to be a fan is kind of constantly evolving, and driven by these platforms, there's this real unique relationship that exists between creator and community, and that's just something that we've tried to kind of really double click into and specifically look at. How do we create exclusives for those people who are dedicated fans? So it's very new. It's a kind of first of its kind in kind of this world of creating subscriber-only merchandise or subscriber-only products. But so far, it's actually looking incredibly exciting, just because it's creating a real depth between streamer and community and encouraging the community to really be connected at a deeper level.
That's very, very cool. Well, for for Twitch streamers themselves, do they have to have a certain level of subscribers to get involved with this, or is this open to anyone?
No, we felt really, it was a really important thing to be able to make this available and open to everybody. With kind of things we've done in the past, we did always have those kind of subscribe accounts and kind of various different thresholds. But what we've actually found, and one of the most exciting parts of our creative business, is that we've noticed that it's actually some of the smaller guys who've got really, really tight communities who really love what they do, who are actually most successful on our platform. So we thought it was important actually to make it open and available for anybody.
I think that's great, and that allows them to to also, fund themselves. But if they have that dedicated fan base, and like you said, they're buying their products, I mean, why not, have that open for them? Well, I think it's a really cool partnership. I think it's a great platform. So for somebody who wants to go on, whether they're an independent creator or a streamer, what's the best way for them to get started with Teespring?
Yeah, so super straightforward. You can obviously either access directly by Twitch through the Twitch kind of extension store, and you can actually add on the extension onto your stream. Very, very straightforward. Or you can come to teespring.com and hit the start designing button and actually start creating merchandise directly on Teespring. And it's also quite a straightforward way to be able to attach your Twitch link or your YouTube link or wherever you kind of use to be able to feature your content. So both very, very straightforward. We've tried to make it as easy as possible for people.
Really cool. Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us here today to talk about this in different ways. You're empowering independent creators and artists to find a way to make a living or make some money on what they're doing. And I think that's great. Thanks so much for joining us here on Digital Trends Live.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Greg. I really appreciate it.
So yeah, that is really cool. So again, talking to everybody who's watching us live right now, I think that's awesome. I'm sure we have a lot of people who are independent creators, and you always want to be able to figure out better ways to fund yourself and can keep those creative projects going, and that's certainly one platform and avenue that you can go down. All right, I know we're going to take a quick break here, and then we're going to come back. I've got some more news stories for you. I'll catch you up to date on a few different things. I'm going to tell you how you could personally go find, I think it's $8,000 quadrillion worth of gold. I'll tell you where it's at, even, and I'll tell you, maybe somehow ways you can get there. You can let me in on it. But we've got that coming up. We've got some more interviews. We're going to talk about some Stranger Things I know on the way. So lots of stuff here for you. Stick around. Back in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. And welcome back to Digital Trends Live. Again, thank you everyone for joining us here every single day, broadcasting live at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you tech headlines, news, interviews, discussions, and now more news. So let me keep you up to date on a couple of things that I think are pretty interesting that are happening and I want you to know about. One of them is this, Project Loon. We see a lot of different companies trying to figure out different ways to spread connectivity around the globe, especially to underserved areas, whether it's satellite internet or different, Facebook, I think, was talking about using some blimps. Well, this is Project Loon, and that's using some balloons. And it's from Alphabet, the parent company of Google. And what they've been trying this out is they essentially they launch up kind of like a giant weather balloon that'll be stationary-ish over a certain area. They can control it with the weather patterns. It's solar powered, so they can actually maneuver it, manipulate it around to keep it fairly stationary over a region, utilizing, there's an example with different wind patterns. They can go up and down to make sure that they stay in that area. So this is able to connect people. Specifically, they've used it, I believe it was in Peru after an earthquake. I think they tried it out in Indonesia as well, but they were looking at more for disaster zones where you need connectivity right away. Puerto Rico, I think, is also another place where they tried this out. And this is something now where they're looking at their first commercial use of this. They've actually got a company who's now on the hook and maybe using this for a commercial purpose. And the company is called Telecom Kenya, which is in Kenya. It's the nation's third largest carrier there. And the idea is to send this up and allow mountain villagers, specifically, this is what the article is saying, so it's these remote areas of Kenya, to have access to 4G connectivity. That's huge. If you think about worldwide, there's a lot of places, a lot of rural areas, a lot of the world is not connected to the internet. And if you think about what kind of economic disadvantages that would put somebody at, just kind of information disadvantages, I mean, it's a huge, huge issue. It's a quality of life issue, really, when it comes down to it, to have some kind of connectivity to the internet and be able to engage that way. So connectivity things are very important. I know I said connectivity a lot, but it's true. It's very, very important. So this is one idea to try to solve this. So this is Project Loon. And again, it's going to be instituted in Kenya. If it's successful on the commercial side, it means they would be able to use it in other places. If it's not, well, maybe Project Loon is just kind of relegated to occasional disaster areas, and that's where it would work. Something they'll be in competition with is, of course, like Starlink, which is SpaceX's satellite internet initiative, where they want to blanket the globe with 13,000 satellites. You have OneWeb. You have a few other companies working in that aspect. Amazon even is looking into that. This is one where you keep it out of space, and just keep it floating above places. This is something where they can then drop it down, they can replace it. That one example that they had is in Puerto Rico. They helped deliver internet to 100,000 people after Hurricane Maria struck. So different aspects like that. It seems like this could be a solution. We'll see how it works. But again, Project Loon being instituted in Kenya, where right now they'll see if they can be successful commercially. All right. Continue on with some more news for you here today on this Wednesday. This is the one I was bringing up at the beginning of the show, and it has to do with another NASA mission to space, in particular to an asteroid. So it's called Psyche. That's the name of this one. I love that name. That's a good name. Okay, so the Psyche mission, this is according to NASA, I'll read their description, is a journey to a unique metal asteroid orbiting the sun between Mars and Jupiter. And what makes the asteroid Psyche unique is that it appears to be exposed nickel-iron core of an early planet, one of the building blocks of our solar system. So I'll tell you a little bit about what this means, and then I'll tell you about something that's also could affect a lot bigger of a picture. So what they want to study this for is to see if this is basically could have been the core of a planet. Because we can't study our core, obviously, directly, but there's the possibility that this could be, the actual core of something or similar to what the core of a planet could be. So if you study that, you can learn a lot. You can learn a lot about the beginning of the solar system. You can learn a lot about how planets are formed. Certainly a lot of information that can be gained from that. They said that they can determine, how it was formed, whether the oxidizing of it may have reduced the Earth's core, all kinds of different real scientific things that they're going to be finding out about this. So this is a mission that's going to be launching in 2022 from Kennedy Space Center. It's going to fly by Mars on the way. It's going to arrive in orbit around the asteroid at 2026, and then it will just stick with there and analyze what's going on with this. Here's the other side of this. So that's a big hunk of metal out in space, so big that it is estimated that it's full of gold and could be worth $8,000 quadrillion when it comes down to it financially. So what does that mean? Well, that means a lot. That means as we see more and more of commercialism in space, we see more companies going out to space. Obviously, they're going to want to make a profit. And we've got a lot of different companies that are working on it right now, which I think is a good thing. But then you're going to have, eventually, this sounds so futuristic, but it's true. We're going to have space miners. Space miners are going to be a thing. There's a book called The Singularity Effect that actually covers exactly this. Not to go too nerdy on you, but that is something where it's exactly about that space miner. So the idea that this is something that valuable, there's that much metal on there, what that could do is completely crush the economy of the world. It's estimated that the world's economy is worth $59 trillion. This thing is worth exponential amounts more than that. So it's going to be a weird balancing act that we're going to enter into, probably not for any time in the near future, but say the next 50 to 100 years, where we're going to have to figure out how all that works and how that applies to what we do, how we apply this into our economy, and whether or not this could be a great thing for us or whether it's a bad thing for us. It's certainly something to think about, but I think it's an interesting prospect, and this is happening. We're sending a probe there now to orbit it, to study it for scientific purposes, but somebody's going to want to cash in on all that gold. So keep up to date with that. We've got that at digitaltrends.com as well. All right, one final thing I want to bring up, and then we're going to go to another interview that we got. We have a guest who's going to be joining us. This is something where, we talk a lot about tech for change, and we bring up different advances in medical tech, and that I think is a really great avenue that we can help improve people's lives. And this is something that's coming from Japan's Hiroshima University, and it's a low-cost 3D printed hand that can be controlled, a prosthetic hand that can be controlled by people's thoughts. That's huge. And what they debuted with this is, they want to get it into more people's, they want to get it out to more people. They want more people to be able to utilize this, and they want it to be less expensive. And right now, high-end prosthetics are very expensive. So the printing material, that's part of it. That is great. The thought-controlled side of it, that's a huge advancement. And there's other companies that are working on that. We've seen other universities, other research groups working on this. The way this one works is, if you see there at the end of his arm, they've attached kind of the same thing that you use for electromyograms, which is where basically when you're studying the heart, you can get to the electric signals that come from that. Clearly, you can read more about this at Digital Trends to get the actual information on it. But the way it does is it monitors those signals that you would normally send. So it senses what you would be doing. Like if they lose their arm, there's that thing called the phantom arm. Well, this senses what those movements would be. It can register that and then translate that to actually moving the hand. Pretty amazing technology. Again, you'll want to read the article to fully get everything about this, get the actual scientific details on it. But I love seeing advancements like that. I love seeing tech for change. I love seeing medical tech advancements to help people out. And that's certainly one that's really, really along those lines. Pretty exciting stuff. All right. Speaking of exciting stuff, let's continue on here with Digital Trends. We have a lot to talk about right now, and talking about how we can crowdfund things, talking about a social impact of what we do directly and how we can help people out. And that is what we're going to be discussing in part, at least right now. Joining us, we have Mike T. Brown, who is the founder and CEO of WinWin. Hello.
Hey, how you doing there? Thanks for having me today.
I'm doing great, and I love the branding. You've got it on point right there. You've got the thinking cap on. That's perfect. Mike, can you tell us, just for a background, what WinWin is, and maybe what inspired you in your background to start this?
Yeah, no, so WinWin, what we've done is we recognize that, charitable giving is pretty outdated, right? There's no real thing that motivates us to give, and certainly not consistently. So what we've done is we've combined giving with gaming to make donating to charity a whole lot of fun, more engaging. So we do that by partnering with professional athletes who host these online game tournaments, like a March Madness bracket challenge or a Pick'em challenge, and fans are able to join the tournament. They predict who's going to win upcoming games, and then what they're doing is they're able to make a donation to the player's foundation of choice. And what they're competing for in this tournament is not money, but instead experiences that money simply can't buy, like having dinner with your favorite player after the game. And really, my background as a professional athlete, but also equally important as a philanthropist, this was really a big pain point that I had recognized early about being able to kind of leverage that platform for good. And being able to do it at scale. And so kind of looking at these two worlds and seeing how sports gaming like fantasy was very, very popular amongst fans, and saw how we could mesh those worlds together to really disrupt the $410 billion charitable giving industry. And so I'm honored to be operating at that intersection of all three of my passions, tech, sports, and philanthropy.
That's fantastic. Yeah, so you've got it all merged together right there into one, and helping people out and finding different ways to engage people. So when you started this off, what was maybe your first event that you launched, and what were some of the wins and losses from that?
Yeah, so we started in 2016, and right out the gate, again, given my background, I had a very strong competitive advantage, if you will. Was able to get a bunch of players really excited about what we were building. So we had about 50 players in the NFL, some of the biggest names in the NFL, like Michael Bennett, Larry Fitzgerald, and Patrick Peterson. In fact, Patrick was one of our first campaigns ever. And we did, he started off with a bang. His prize, right? So he hosted a tournament, and he wanted to raise money for the flood victims in Baton Rouge in 2016. And he used WinWin, and he hosted the tournament. And the prizes that he gave away were pretty phenomenal. The top 3 winners on the leaderboard were able to fly on a private jet with Patrick down to Baton Rouge to go to the LSU versus Alabama game. And all these folks that won this was donate and compete to the cause. And everybody who joined the tournament actually wins. So first place to last place guaranteed. So we had people winning autographed Patrick Peterson jerseys, autographed footballs, and thanks to Fanatics, who was the sponsor of the tournament, people were able to walk away with Fanatics credits. And one of the things for us that we learned in that tournament was that this thing it can happen, right? And we were able to do that in a pretty significant way. Now, some of the things just in, your typical startup iteration mode, right? We were learning things about our user funnel that we could certainly optimize. And for example, one of the things that we changed very shortly after that tournament was the gaming model itself. So originally we started off as daily fantasy, right? That was the model. You were literally building a lineup. And we realized that a lot of the target demographic for us, the folks who see value in meeting Patrick and don't mind donating to his charity, they're actually not the ones, playing fantasy sports all the time, right? They're using their money a little differently. So we recognized that fantasy was actually a much harder model for our target demographic. So that's where we kind of evolved into what we call social games for social good. So the Pick'em challenges, March Madness brackets, and it really opened us up to a whole wider audience of folks that love sports, but the gaming element wasn't too complex.
So it gives everybody an opportunity to get involved then at that point. I got to say, that prize for that first one, that is a hell of a prize. Private jet to the LSU Alabama game? Yeah, okay. So you start off with that. Like you said, you start off with a bang, and you go from there. And now, you're, I guess, 3 years into it at this point. What are some of the changes that you've seen over that time and ways that you can engage people and people that, increase that engagement? And what are some things that you'd like to see going forward?
Yeah, no. So, we although we started off with a bang there, we were really still focused on the product, right? And product development and really understanding our conversion funnel. So we technically have been in beta this entire time and really just flying low, working with some of the select players. We have about 160, 70 players across the NFL and NBA today, but we've been working with a handful of those guys during the beta phase to really stress test the platform. And I'm so excited now that we have reached what we feel is product market fit, because we're seeing 5% full funnel conversion on organic social media traffic. And what that means is that 5% of people who have clicked the link that a player posts goes through the entire process. They create a win-win account, they make all the predictions, and they make a voluntary donation at about $53 a transaction. And this compared to, the industry standard of about 1.5% or much less to convert organic traffic from click to transaction is pretty phenomenal. And so we're just really proud about the work that we put in and the iterations that we make. Because I'll be honest, it's been a very long iterative process, right? Getting to that product market fit. There are several things that we've kind of had to change and stress test. The overall model of kind of gamified giving has always been where we've stood. But now doing it at scale is kind of our next phase. And now that we're raising our next round of capital, we've had, players become investors who were partners initially. And they're like, look, man, you built something of real value here. And so I'm proud to announce guys like Malcolm Jenkins, Michael Bennett, Jalen Watkins. These guys have all made a decision to invest in win-win after seeing the things that we've been doing. And again, that's kind of a testament to the process that we've gone through, and now we're ready to go to the next phase.
I mean, that's absolutely a testament to what you've created with that. I mean, starting off, with this idea and getting through that, you said you have 160, 170 athletes on board. That means they're clearly seeing that this is valuable. They want to give back, and this is definitely the way, they're figuring it out. Like, going forward, now that you're getting this investment and, you're talking about going up to scale, where would you like to see it end up? Or are there different avenues that you would like to get into that you're not yet currently?
Yeah, for us, kind of this vertical expansion has always kind of been, our focus in terms of the long term, right? So we're working with athletes, right, professional athletes across the 3 major sports, and we'll be continuing to scale horizontally into all sports, right? So MLS, NHL, soccer, golf, all these things, NASCAR. All these folks have massive audiences and fan bases, and they want to leverage that for good. And so what we're able to now do, and we're starting this expansion now actually, where we're working now with entertainers, artists, general influencers, pro teams, and now having conversations with universities, right? Because these are all what I like to call entities of influence. And they all have a massive audience that they could, now working with Win-Win, be able to mobilize in support of some cause, right? So for example, with the universities, one of the things we're excited about is the conversations we're having with several directors of the annual fund, right? And for alumni, I'm sure they all know that they're getting calls or emails about, donating back to the school. And we all love to do that. But now you can imagine, for example, my alma mater, Duke University hosted March Madness Bracket Challenge, for example. And all alumni are made aware. They donate. That money goes back to the annual fund. They get credit for that gift as an alum, and they're winning, dinner with Coach K or courtside seats at the UNC game. And I can tell you, as an alumni myself, we're all on top of that. So, really excited about where this thing is going over the next few years, and our expansion model is something that we're really focused on. To be able to create the sustainability and the viability that our investors really see coming to fruition. And I think another part of this growth that I think may be a little unique as well, kind of in our roadmap, is how we're raising money, right? So we started off kind of the traditional way. We've raised about $1.5 million in our initial pre-seed, but now we just opened up an equity crowdfunding campaign. So when you talk about growth, right, one of the things I see as a true win-win is being able to let people, whether they're accredited or non-accredited investors, invest in Win-Win for as little as $100, right? And then what that does is it gives them equity, it gives us some capital, but it also gives us an army full of new users that honestly are vested in seeing us succeed, right? So when we start launching our new campaigns, somebody who invested $500 of their hard-earned money, they're more inclined, it's actually in their best interest to engage and give back and share to all their friends. So it's part of our growth model is to really give people an opportunity to come aboard as investors as well. So it's at, republic.co/win-win. And now we're able to, get people on board in a very significant way.
So they're not only part of it, but then you've also built out this giant marketing team that's going to be out sharing it and spreading that. That's brilliant. Well, Mike, again, I want to just emphasize for everybody who's watching right now how they can get involved, how they can participate in what's going on, and what the best platform is for them to go to get involved with Win-Win.
Yeah, so I'd say right now, immediately, it would be republic.co/win-win. This is where, like I said, we're raising money. We have an equity crowdfunding campaign that we launched recently. I think we're about to hit the $65,000 mark probably within the next few minutes. And so really excited about being able to make that opportunity known. And not only will they learn about the company, they'll learn about everything we've done. And it's a real, complete set of information around how you can become an investor and all the things you need to know as an investor. Now, as we move closer to the season, trywinwin.com is our website, and our web app is located there. And that's where you'll really start to see the campaigns that are launching. You can find us on Instagram handle is trywinwin. You can find myself at _Mike T. Brown. And that's where we'll be having a lot of content and information about the upcoming launch and, of course, the equity crowdfund right now.
Mike, thank you so much for joining us here on Digital Trends Live to talk about your platform and help spread the word about it. I mean, congratulations on all the success that you have so far. Really looking forward to see where you take this. And yeah, thanks for joining us here today.
No, I appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
All right, that's just awesome. So again, I want to emphasize that website, republic.co/win-win. That's where you can go and participate and help that organization grow. So cool. It's always nice talking to people who are using their powers for good, using promotional opportunities and organizing that to help out charities. All right, we have one more segment coming up. We're going to be joined by Rick Marshall to talk about Stranger Things Season 3. It starts tomorrow. What should we expect? What's happened previously? Because I had to remind myself on a couple of those things. We're going to talk about everything coming up with it, and all that's going to be live. So drop in your comments, your questions. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. This is Digital Trends Live. Again, thank you for joining us here on this show. And I think it's time now that we talk a little bit about some entertainment, because tomorrow, July 4th, whenever you're watching this, this is when it's going to be out. Stranger Things Season 3 is finally back. It's returned. We had the long-awaited, because I believe it was delayed several months, actually, before we actually got this one. Now it's finally coming out, and we need to understand a few things that are going on. And that is the point of the article that Rick Marshall, who is joining us now, 5 big questions Stranger Things needs to answer in Season 3. That's what we're trying to get to the bottom of. Rick, hello.
Hello, how's it going?
Doing well. I read your article. I'm reading through it right now, and I agree on so much of this, but can we start walking through, kind of reminding a little bit about what happened in Season 2 and what some of these big questions are that need to be answered?
Well, Season 2 sort of big finale, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, but this is going to be all spoilers at this point. But Season 2 sort of concluded with them believing that they had sort of closed the gate to the upside down, the alternate dimension that all these bad, creepy, deadly things were coming out of. But apparently, as in all stories like this, the rumors of the death of the bad guy have been, greatly exaggerated, and we have a Season 3 coming where, they are fighting bad things once again, this time infecting possibly somebody else in their sort of social circles, and they have to kind of figure things out. But also, they're figuring out young love, turning into adults, all that sort of stuff in Hawkins, Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with this one, because the kids are definitely significantly older. I mean, shocking. As you're filming this, they have to. And I know the creators have this book that they wrote out, like essentially a journal, a guide to get through all of this. And I think it's up to, you could probably know better than me, like Season 5 or 6, I think is what they have it in mind. But I feel like this season is kind of a big one to where they have to bring back in something different and also tie up some of these loose ends. Like, get us a little bit more information and stop being such a mystery. And I know reading through, one of your things that you said is the question to be answered, what the heck is the upside down? I mean, I agree, right? That has to be answered in this, doesn't it?
They've been so vague about a lot of the things. And as I wrote in there, I think, it comes from both wanting to establish that sense of mystery that, people want to keep coming back to find things out. But also it just seems to be sort of reflecting, the human character's uncertainty about what it is that they're dealing with, which makes sense too. But at this point, when you're hitting the 3rd season, we've gone through both, the introductory sort of henchman-y type creature in the 1st season, and then, we had the big bad in the 2nd season. And now they really kind of have to, I think, sort of start diving into that mythology a bit more, give us something different, not just, the creature infecting somebody new. The characters themselves are fascinating and compelling, and we'll keep coming back for them. But I think they do need to get creative at this point, and hopefully that book that they have mapped out for the story is going to surprise us.
What are some other things that you think that should be addressed in this season?
I'd love to see them address the 2nd season character, Kali. 11 took a little detour, off of the normal narrative in Hawkins there to go out to Chicago and visit this girl who apparently was in the same experiments that gave 11 her powers at this mysterious Hawkins laboratory. And they spent about an episode with her where she sort of helped 11 fine-tune her powers and all that sort of thing, and basically get to the point where she could close the gate to the upside down. But they just sort of abandoned her after that. And she was number 8. So we have 11 and we have 8. I would love to see more explanation of what happened with 1 through 7, 9 and 10, and if there are more than that.
Right, and I kind of forgot about that character until reading through this. I was like, oh yeah, they had another person with powers on there, and just show up and then, okay, see ya. And they just dropped it and never went back to that. Yeah,
it's interesting because they dove into it in apparently the comic book series spin-off. There were like these little mini-series comic books based on the world of Stranger Things that apparently addressed some of the other, 1 or 2 of the other, the other kids that were experimented on that had powers or this or that, but they've never really mentioned them in the show. So we're left kind of wondering, are they part of the canon? Are they not? this is one of those things where it'd be really nice to see either that addressed or not addressed, or to have them go in a new direction with the show, and kind of explore that area.
So let's hit one more, then I want to direct everybody to the article, digitaltrends.com. What's one other thing that you would like to see wrapped up the most?
I would really like to see sort of wrapped up the, let's see, I really, honestly, the whole thing about the kids being experimented on, that's really the thing that I'm focused on. 'Cause I really want to know, as I come from loving superheroes and comic books and all that sort of sci-fi stuff, and there's so much potential there to show like what the other kids might have, what powers they might have had. We know that Kali could create illusions and all that sort of stuff. And 11 is telekinetic and telepathic. And so what did some of the other kids do that brought them to the lab? And, what has happened to the people, the agency that was creating, this whole experiment in the first place? I think that's a really ripe area of the narrative that could be explored and just blow up the entire Stranger Things mythology for future seasons.
Right. We need basically mostly a prequel to go on here. That's what we want.
That's the first time that's probably ever been said about any property that's existed out there. We could really use a prequel.
We really need a prequel to understand what's going on here. Well, the article that you've got up is there at Digital Trends, and it premieres July 4th, correct?
Yes, yeah. Midnight tonight.
Midnight.
At midnight tonight, July 4th. I'm not sure if that's midnight Eastern or West Coast or what, to be honest. I'm not exactly certain. But it is midnight tonight. And it's July 4th. The whole thing starts out in the summertime in Hawkins, Indiana. So, I know a lot of people wanted to see it around Halloween time, but this is actually a very summer-themed season, apparently. So it's a good timing.
So it makes more sense. Well, I mean, I'm sure, like everybody watching, you're going to watch it. So regardless, I'm going to watch it through the entire thing. But there's so much to talk about with it. And thank you so much for being on here, Rick. Everybody check out your article at Digital Trends. And thanks for joining.
Hey, thank you for having me on.
It's always fun talking about Stranger Things. So again, that premieres tomorrow. And we've got a catch-up article too. So if you don't remember everything that happened in season 2, which was me, you can read that article at Digital Trends and get caught up so you're ready to go for season 3 when it starts. And speaking of catching you up, let's talk about just some of the things that we've covered today on this show, which is every day. It's a lot. So we had Dan Gall in here at the beginning of the show. Always fun with him in, and always fun going off the rails just a little bit when Dan's in here. But we did talk about some really cool things. The Samsung Galaxy Fold, that might possibly be fixed, which is cool. Good for technology. Warner Media and their streaming service. We covered that in the beginning. And then continuing through the show, we had Matt Katz who joined us to talk about China installing apps on tourists' phones and Facebook and what they're doing when it comes to stopping the spread of bad medical advice. We'll just say that. There's a lot more in there, but you can check that out at digitaltrends.com. We had Henry Bazet, the CTO and Senior Vice President of Automotive for Flex, talking about their efforts and what we need to get fully connected cars and how that's going to affect us. We had Chris LaMontagne, the CEO of Teespring, and their platform and how it's supporting independent creators. Mike T. Brown, the founder and CEO of Win-Win, a great organization trying to help make giving to charities, turning that into a game and increasing charity donations. So really great platform that they're working on. And again, Rick Marshall talking about Stranger Things. So that's all just in today's episode. And we have lots of episodes for you. So you can always go back and take a look at the different segments that we've had. If you want to rewatch something, we've got those up at Digital Trends. And here's the deal. So we're not back tomorrow for July 4th. We're also not going to be live on Friday, but we've got a very special episode that's going to be airing for you. So don't worry. You'll still have something that's going up on Friday and kind of taking a look back at some really cool things that have happened here with this show. And that's all because of you. So thank you so much for watching this show. Thanks for hitting that subscribe button. Thanks for joining us every day or whenever you do join us. Thanks for sharing the segments that you like the most, letting us know, giving us that feedback. We love interacting with you, and we really, really do appreciate that. And I appreciate you. And everybody have a great 4th of July if you're celebrating that, wherever you're at watching this show. And have a great weekend. And we'll talk to you soon with more Digital Trends Live.